And welcome back to the Roar Rundown, brought to you by the Ouachita Sports Digital Network. I'm Isaac Bourne, this time joined by Jillian Covington. And Jillian, we've had another exciting week of Ouachita sports here in Arkadelphia, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a very successful weekend for the Tigers.
And I mean, let's start it out with what happened on Saturday. You know, what transpired at Cliff Harris Stadium. Jillian, do you want to go a little bit into that?
Right, so the Ouachita Tigers beat UAM by 49-14. It was pretty much a shutout game, but we saw touchdowns by not only offense, but by defense and special teams. So, like, all three phases of the team got an opportunity to show out.
And the big story is you see standout on the defense and former GAC Defensive Player of the Week, Mikey Gonzalez, scoring his first career touchdown after a sack on UAM quarterback DeMylan Brown, and Gonzalez jumped onto Brown and then onto the fumbled ball in the end zone as the Tigers scored their second touchdown of the game. And then right after that, just a couple drives later, Malik Relaford falling into the end zone on a blocked punt on special teams. So the Tigers just getting it done on all three areas of the field on Saturday. Just a great all-around game. And now, you know, you look at this Tiger team and you have great performances from just about the entire roster. Obviously, you look at Livingston having another good game on the air, 156 passing yards. Then you see Kendall Givens running the ball just as well as he always does. But Jillian, what do you think your biggest standout in this game was?
My biggest standout in this game, I would say, is definitely still Eli Livingston. I think he's still really trying to prove himself, and he's doing a great job at it. You can see by his stats in this past game, but I think it's also important to note that freshman Nate Tenbarge started to show his talent in this game as well.
And yes, you saw Livingston hop in 13 for 17, really great passing percentage on the day. But then freshman Nate Tenbarge has been a big bright spot for this Ouachita team this year, a true freshman for the Tigers. And he has really been the standout backup quarterback up to this point, which is really crazy to see. Seeing, you know, as Riley Harms, a very big talent as well, starting for the Tigers for the past 2 seasons, and then now they use him sparingly, with him still recovering from that ACL tear. But Tenbarge really coming alive when they needed him to in that game, and I mean, we saw the same thing from him at Northwestern Oklahoma State just a couple weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, what he does with this offense once it's handed over to him as soon as next season, which is crazy to think about that next year both Livingston and Harms will be graduated and it'll be Tenbarge's offense.
Right, and I'm excited to see what he does with that for sure. But I think if the team continues where they're at, all phases, working as hard as they can to score and defend, I think as long as he's a great support system, he'll do great.
And then you also look at the receiving game this week. You saw just a plethora of players getting some action. The big name, Kemontre McKnight, 3 receptions for 47 yards. Just a great performance for the graduate student. And then you see Kendall Givens coming back to form, you know, scoring the first touchdown of the game that eventually led to many more. And then Connor Flanagan, another big story for the Tigers, with 2 touchdowns, leading all players with the most touchdowns in the game, as he received the first one on a 16-yard run and then the second one on a 7-yard pass from Eli Livingston. So all around great performance for the Tigers. Now you go forward, and this coming week they are facing off against Southeastern Oklahoma State, most likely the strongest football team in the GAC out of Oklahoma. And how do you take momentum from a game like this towards this next one?
I think the Tigers prove that they are good at carrying momentum from game to game, but I think, you know, it is an away game, it is Oklahoma, so they might be a little caught off guard, but I don't know, we've seen them strengthened by each game, and they obviously can adapt even at halftime like we saw in last week, so I have no doubt that they'll carry the momentum into the next game.
And then finally, I want to go into the Tigers' rush defense this week because, I mean, it's just absolutely insane. You look at this paper right now. And you look at UAM versus Ouachita in the rushing statistics. At halftime, UAM had 0 rushing yards. Jillian, I'm going to say that again to you. UAM did not rush for a single yard at halftime.
Not a single one.
Because of the defensive line play for this Ouachita team. And while UAM finished with 29 net yards rushing on 28 attempts, meaning that they had one more yard rushing than they did attempts rushing. That just goes as a testament to this defensive line that Ouachita has. And the big story this week, Rovell Carter winning Ouachita Defensive Player of the Week with a sack and a half on 6 yards lost. And then you look at some of his other stats, you see tackles for loss as well. He had a great game as well with 2.5 tackles for loss, going along with Chance Taylor also getting a sack and 2 tackles for loss. I mean, that front line for the Tigers just standing strong, not letting UAM get an inch of breathing room and forcing DeMylan Brown to look to the air to get his points. And that's what the Bull Weevils did on Saturday. And so now we're going to go ahead and move on to women's soccer after they had a pretty successful week. And they only had one game, but that one was worthwhile as the Lady Tigers headed off to Ada, Oklahoma to start their conference season off well against East Central. And I mean, all the sparks were flying. Isn't that true, Jillian?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the girls felt like they had something to really prove in this game. It was the first one in the conference, and they did not disappoint at all. And it wasn't a shutout, but it was an intense game to watch for sure. But we definitely saw some standout players in this game too.
And you see the Tigers go down 1-0 15 minutes into this one, go into halftime down 1-0, and then come back into this second half, and you see at the 51st minute, sophomore Hattie Gardner, former GAC Player of the Week, taking the first goal of the game. And then in the final minute of this one, Tegan Yowzy, the midfielder, getting a goal to basically a walk-off goal to win on the road for their first conference win of the season. How does that bode for a season for this Lady Tiger team?
I think they might have gotten a little nervous in their preseason games, but they showed in this first conference game that they're back and they're ready to go, just like the past years. And players like Hattie and Tegan are definitely out there to prove themselves. I mean, this was Tegan's first career goal, and I don't think it's her last. So I think they're going to take this momentum, and I think they're going to be very successful this season.
And then you look at the goalkeeping, a big bright spot as well for the Tigers. Karina Chavarria, having a couple rough ones to start the season, but then 4 saves on Saturday in Ada to really stake her claim in that goal and really have a pickup game to start off GAC play. Something really interesting to start off the season and exciting to see if she can maintain that, or if Coach Wright is going to continue to rotate through his set of goalkeepers that have all shown different talents.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you look at these players, and a lot of them have played like the full 90, and the fact that they don't lose the momentum up into the last minute of the game really shows a lot about this team.
And, I mean, you see the ones that play the full 90, Abby Moore, Sophia Valencia, and then you see Amory Thomas as well, having just solid games. Not Amory Thomas, excuse me, Abby Cowgill. I was looking at the wrong line there, but you see those defenders on the back line really being stout figures for this Tiger team and really showing why last year they had one of the best defenses, or the best defense in the Great American Conference. And, I mean, this East Central team played well, but the Tigers just could not. The Tigers were just better towards the end of the game, and that's eventually where you need to be the best at.
Yep, it all comes down to the last minute.
And then moving on to men's soccer this week, the men's team starting off the week against Rogers State in Claremore, Oklahoma, a 3-0 loss to start the week. Did not bode well for the week, but then a very promising road game against Northeastern State. They lost 1-2, but with Alexis Moore in that Alexis Murillo, and towards the end of the game getting a penalty goal for the Tigers just bodes for some momentum going forward, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Despite the score, I think this game against Northeastern is probably one of the better games I've ever watched by this team. It really showed how strong and how far they've come. And again, the score was not ideal, but it showed how hard they were willing to fight and that they did not give up. And
then another big bright spot that continues for this Ouachita men's team, has to be goalkeeper Dylan Stahl. He let 2 past him in that one, but 7 saves is a season high for the junior, and Dylan Stahl continues to show why he has outright won that goalkeeper position in the start for every game so far. Stahl has been stout in that goal and continues to be one of the best in the Great American and MIAA conferences this season.
Right. I believe last time I checked, he was number 1 in the GAC for saves and about number 6 in the NCAA for Division II. So, I mean, they have strong players all across the field, but I think if they really start harping on the teamwork together, that they'll be very successful this season.
And then finally, we're going to move on to the final athletic performance of the week. The swim team. This is the first time we've talked about them this season, but they went on the road this week to Edmond, Oklahoma, and specifically the Sam Freeze Invite, where the men's team really showed why they are one of the top teams in Division II going into this one. They posted 7 event wins in Saturday's meet, where they competed against some of the top teams in Division II. For example, Oklahoma Christian, which last season finished top 10 in the D2 coaches poll. But Sam Ragsdale, really the story of the weekend, coming out with a time of 21:31 in the 50 freestyle and a 46:09 in the 100 freestyle. Ragsdale has been one of the Tigers' top sprinters all for the whole time that he has been on campus. But this meet really shows his motivation to come into this season. 21:31, actually one of his top times of all time. And he was not in a tech suit whatsoever. Ragsdale did this event completely just on a whim and went out and absolutely dominated and got his first event win of the season, and I'm sure not the last.
I'm sure not the last. That's the definition of raw talent. And I won't lie and say I understand all of the swimming stats, but after seeing the men's team and the women's team in person, it's not hard to tell that they're a very strong team and they're very committed to what they do.
And then going into some other event wins, Daniel Mazzaros showing why he's one of the top freshmen in the conference this season, winning the 200 freestyle with a time of 1:41 and the 500 freestyle with a time of 4:40.48. And then Michael Higgins, another one of the Tigers' talented freshman class, winning the 100 butterfly with a 50 point, and then also finishing 3rd in the 50 freestyle with a 21.5. And then just continuing this success, continuing on this. The men won both the 200 medley relay and the 200 freestyle relay. And I mean, Jillian, this men's team has shown that last season they were not happy with that 3rd place finish in the New South Intercollegiate Swim Conference Championships, and they wanted to come and show this season that they are going for the title.
Yeah, they took that loss personally, and it's definitely evident that they are adamant on winning this year.
And the Tigers continue this season. You look also on the women's side at Anna Phelps continuing her dominance for the Tigers, finishing 2nd in the 200 butterfly with a time of 2:08, and then also getting 2nd in the 500 freestyle with a 5:15. Phelps has been one of the biggest names in the New South Conference to look for, and she once again is coming back for another extremely good sophomore campaign. But for this Tiger team, they continue on with their season continuing next Friday as Oklahoma Christian comes to Arkadelphia for a dual meet, the Tigers' first dual meet of the season, and it will be a very exciting one as the Tigers last year took down Oklahoma Christian by a score of just 2 points at home here, and it gave the Tigers their first ranked win of the season, and they're hoping to do just the same this season. So Jillian, I mean, you've got a swim team that last season, like we said, took that loss personally, finishing barely in the top 25 in the nation. How does a team like this that has all that on their back respond this season?
Well, we've already seen how they responded this past weekend, and I think if they continue using that loss as motivation and, focus on what they need to fix. But, I mean, right now they have great representation on men and women's for what the season is going to look like. So I believe as long as they keep that motivation in the back of their mind, they'll do amazing.
And Coach Stephen Bostic, one of the known big names in this New South Conference, winning Coach of the Year last season just for his ability to, obviously you've seen his recruitment ability with all these talented freshmen, but also develop as you've seen players like swimmers such as Sam Ragsdale really step out and be big success stories for him. Now one of the top sprinters in the conference. And then obviously you see other swimmers such as Miles Schultz, and Schultz is going to be a big name that while you don't see his name you haven't heard his name yet, Miles Schultz is the name to look for as the lone Tiger All-American to return this season, and he's looking for that title once again. And so then moving on to the final sport that we'll be covering this week, going to cross country. Not competing this week after their success at the Argonaut Invitational. They now move to Dallas this Saturday as they go to the Old Glory Gallop for Dallas Baptist. And so what do you expect to see this weekend, Jillian?
I expect to see the same results we've been seeing the past few years, this season. They've had a lot of motivation in their new track being built and really trying to prove themselves as a new team, a growing team. So I think, we're going to see great results, especially from, the runner, Izzy Bro. She's going to continue just improving her trophy shelf for sure. So moving on to our newest segment, the best thing I saw this week. I'm going to ask you, Isaac, what is the best thing you saw in Ouachita sports this week?
There were a lot of exciting moments throughout all of Ouachita's success this week. Obviously, you saw the Arkansas Monticello win for football, and you saw the Tiger Sharks compete really well at Oklahoma Christian. But for me, the best thing I saw this week has to be Tegan Yowzy, that 90th minute goal for the Tigers to win and claim their first conference win of the year. Yowzy has been a talent for this Tiger team to start the year, and she really has come out as one of the Tigers' biggest names. So, Tegan Yowzy, with her ability to just create penetration and score right there, has to be my best thing I saw this week.
Well, you stole mine, but I had a close backup. My backup was the fact that our football team, it's not a surprise that they won. They've been having a great season, a great few years. But the fact that we saw such success from each part of the team this week, and, there wasn't a spotlight on just one player or one section of the team, but the fact that it was truly a group, a team win, that's the best thing I saw this week.
And with that, that's all we've got for you this week. Please tune in to the Ouachita Sports Digital Network this week for all of your live sports needs here on the campus of Ouachita Baptist University, and we'll be sure to have just about all of these events on live stream for you. But as for me and as for Jillian, that'll wrap us up. But thank you so much for watching the Roar Rundown and the Ouachita Sports Digital Network.